so many people choose to be like, oh, well, I'll just share the good stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but it's the shit stuff that we bond over that changes the expectation of the next generation coming through. I was massively unaware of how many people were paying attention to the personal brand that I was building on LinkedIn.
I actually wasn't trying to pick a fight.
Yeah.
But I don't know what I was thinking. But anyway, I did it and he responded, didn't really like what I wrote. And then I'm looking and this is just blowing up like 8,000, 12,000.
I was like, God damn, you give me $20 million. Like, I'm pretty sure I could do a kick-ass campaign. I announced it on LinkedIn the next day. The first week, we had 180 marketers come into the Slack channel. After a year and a half, we were at, I think, about 6,000. And then 2.5 years later, we grew to 10,000.
I've done a lot of trying to like teach or educate or inform. And I put a lot of effort into some of that stuff. And it just doesn't land that often. And then I write something a bit, slightly unhinged, whatever, and people love it.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the thing that I'm like, how do we break the wheel? It's so dramatic, but I'm like, how do we stop?
Game of Thrones fan?
I'm literally in season 8 right now.
Chanel, hello. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for joining me on an episode of the podcast. It's good to be talking to you.
No, thank you for having me.
We're going to talk about something that we've both experienced, and I'm sure the listeners have experienced in one way or another, but just around launching our own brands and what that's like as a marketer, and perhaps someone promoting themselves as an employee, as a marketer, or that type of thing. They might feel similar pressures because we're supposed to be able to do our voodoo, our Jedi mind tricks and have people just buy, right? If we're in control of our own brand, right, like we get it all right. It might be relevant for someone who thinks about building their personal brand on LinkedIn or on a social media platform if they're a marketer. Just an interesting topic because we've both had some experience there. Obviously, this is a brand that I've built or I started about 10 years ago. Hasn't grown as fast as your brands, but which we can probably get into as well.
There's no right or wrong.
Yeah, so obviously you've launched the Marketing Club and built your own brand and consultancy around your name. Did you feel any pressure or specific pressure, do you think, as a marketer to get this stuff right?
Yeah, I mean, of course, right? Like, I'm suddenly marketing myself. So, of course, it's like, well, what does you marketing yourself look like? You're not marketing anyone else. You're supposed to know all the things you're supposed to do. I definitely struggled with it because I think it was kind of like, all right, put your money where your mouth is now. And it was like, what, I had to sort of look at myself of if I was the client, what am I suggesting that I do first? How do I prioritize? I think it's also really hard to have you become the product that you're supposed to talk about. I think I've spoken about this before, but it was a really hard transition for me to go from working for someone else and talking about what I do as an employee to then me becoming the thing that I have to talk about. Like, I'm very good at, or I'm more comfortable being like, oh, hey, this is the brand I work for, so this is why I'm talking about it.
Great product, amazing product.
Yeah, and then to switch to be like, it's me. I'm amazing. This is what I offer. Like, it was very much an allergic reaction to have to switch into that. I still really struggle with it. To have to talk about yourself in order to put yourself out there and what you offer. Sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, like I'll connect with everyone on a human level first, but and I lean on LinkedIn a lot for this, but when I have to suddenly switch gear and say what I offer as a consultant, I'm like, writing those posts and I'm like, this is just like, like trying to do that is just, it's really challenging. Like, I don't envy anyone else that has to do it. I don't think there's no hacks or tools or tricks. It's just like you have to get comfortable with literally talking about yourself.
Yeah, and saying how good you are, what you've done, and have to keep saying it. And it does feel a bit weird because I think I've got the same perspective as I never had a problem promoting a client's or an employer's product. But then switch it to yourself and it's, And like you, easier to connect on the human level. Yeah. But then you need to sell at some point. Yeah. So, totally relate. When you launched, maybe we'll talk about the Marketing Club first, but the build up to that launch, what did you do to launch it for a start, and what was going through your head?
It was a lot. So the whole reason behind building the Marketing Club was because coming up in my career, I mean, I didn't even know what a career in marketing looked like. I was young, I was full of energy, I was ambitious, I was driven. I was struggling to get into the industry. You know, everyone hiring junior marketers, you have to have at least 2 or 3 years experience. I'm like, how are we supposed to get the experience if you don't give us the experience? Like, this is bullshit. So I always really struggled with that. And then once I got into the industry, I was like, okay, now for some reason I seem to be the only marketer in these roles, or I'm a marketer in a small team and everyone else in the team doesn't really have marketing backgrounds. They were just put into the roles because that's what the business needed. So I really struggled of what does it look like as a career in marketing? Who do I turn to, you know, for advice or feedback or support, because I wasn't getting that from the companies that I was in. And I think the big turning point for me of, okay, I'm going to build this, is as I was going up in my career, I was starting to learn about events that were happening in the industry targeted towards marketers. And I was like, okay, so there is like a support group and network that I can lean on. And I was going to these events. And, you know, I was often the only female. I was often the only one in my 30s. Everyone else was like pale male, 50 plus. And they were all sort of talking about like the ends of their careers. You know, it felt like it was like the war stories of what marketing looks like. And, you know, I'm bouncing in the room like, I'm so excited to start my career. And they're like, oh, this has been shit. I've been in this for 30 years. It's a slog. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, this looks so much fun. So I was struggling to find, you know, people who were in the same moment as me in their career. And then some of the events that I was going to that were like educational events, it was, you know, hearing from these hugely successful marketers at huge companies. I remember one event I went to, and it was the CMO of Lotto, which is like this gambling sort of thing over in New Zealand. She was talking about how their $20 million marketing campaign worked. And, you know, I was only a few years in my career. I was like, God damn, you give me $20 million. Like, I'm pretty sure I could do a kick-ass campaign. It was aspirational and inspirational to listen to, don't get me wrong. But like, I begged my boss to take the morning off work, to go to that conference, to hear something that I could bring back to the business as a takeaway. And when I got back to the office, my manager's like, cool, so you've had the morning off. Like, what are the learnings? What's the magic sauce that we can, you know, implement into the business? And I was like, do we got $20 million? Because if we don't, like, I don't know what to tell you. And it just made me realize that there was just such a gap in the industry for meeting most marketers where they were. You know, the whole industry wasn't just CMOs and, you know, venture capitalists and all this. It was like the marketers like me who were coming in, who were keen to understand what marketing at a baseline looked like. How do I know what good marketing looked like versus bad marketing? And there was just nothing to facilitate that. And I thought, right, maybe I'll build it. And, you know, I'm the kind of personality, if something doesn't exist, I'll build it myself. I think I've been that way for a while. I'm starting to embrace it. That is just a part of my personality. I've not liked it for a while, but now I'm like, this is like pretty good. So yeah, I was like, okay, if I'm going to build this thing, what does it look like? And I thought, what is the industry missing? It's missing community. It's missing connection. It's missing tangible advice and takeaways from real people in the industry dealing with problems at the moment. And I sat on the idea for about a year because obviously I was like, oh, this doesn't exist. Maybe there's a reason why it doesn't exist. You know, I can't be the first person to have thought this is what the industry needs, but if it's not here yet, you know, there must be a bigger reason. I'm just not smart enough to understand it yet. Sat on the idea for about a year. And then I got hired as a head of marketing for an FMCG company, having never worked in FMCG before. I was 3 months into my role. I literally had to, you know, start marketing as a function for the business and then go and do all the things. And I was like, holy shit, I am drowning. I am in a role I have never been in before. I have never had this much budget, this much control, this much responsibility. Like, there has to be someone else out there who has done this before that could just be a soundboard for me. And, you know, at that point I was like, oh, maybe this marketing club is quite a good idea. And I remember I was talking at an event with Tracksuit, actually, which was a brand tracking tool that we were using at the company at the time. And I, you know, had my little moment in front of everyone. And right before I was getting off stage, I was like, count to 3, Chanel, and just say something about the marketing club. So I counted myself down and I was like, oh, and by the way, you know, I'm thinking of building this marketing club. If you're a marketer and, you know, you just want support or feedback or a bit of a network, you should join us. And I thought, right, if I've announced it to a room full of 100 people, now I have to actually go and do the thing. Like, that was the jump off the cliff moment of, you know, you've sold the dream, Chanel, now go and actually do it. And at that point I was like, it'll just be a Slack community, because I was already using Slack for work. I kind of liked the idea of like all the different channels and stuff that you could have. And I thought, well, that'd be perfect for marketing, you know, like ad spend tools, resources, jobs, etc. So it was a platform that I was already familiar with. I thought, right, it's just going to be an online Slack community, even if I just get 5 or 30 marketers in here, you know, we can all just soundboard off each other. We can share, you know, newsletters we read, podcasts we listen to, you know, even just catch up for coffee once a month and trauma bond over what it's like to be a marketer. And I remember, that night went home, launched a Slack. The next day I did a LinkedIn post about it. And at the time on LinkedIn, I was only connected with marketers because that was the industry that I was in. I had tunnel vision on what LinkedIn was for as a platform anyway. So I was like, oh, this is just me and my marketing friends. So I announced it on LinkedIn the next day. The first week, we had 180 marketers come into the Slack channel. And I was like, holy shit, like, where did you all, like, I didn't even know there were 180 marketers in Auckland. Like, what is going on? And it was cool seeing everyone come in because it was basically, you know, like I had unintentionally validated how everyone else was feeling, and now I gave us a space for everyone to come together. Within the first week, 180, and then it was like 3 weeks later we were at 500 people, and I was like, oh my God, like what, you know, and everyone's kind of asking like, oh, what's the point of this group? Where is this going? I was like, I don't know. I just like wanted, you know, I just wanted somewhere for everyone to talk. After about 3 months of the Slack community going, everyone was like, okay, cool. Like, this is great. We've got this online 24/7 support. You know, it's like marketing in your back pocket. You can talk to everyone. But when are we actually going to meet everyone? Because the whole point of, you know, building community was actually being able to have face-to-face conversation. And, you know, this was obviously after COVID, so everyone was finally getting back into the habit of like going out into the real world and talking to people. And I was like, oh, okay, like maybe we should do like a meetup or something so everyone can connect. So we did like our first social networking event. I think 50 people came to that. It was basically just at a bar, meet a bunch of marketers, connect with each other on LinkedIn, and then go home. And we did that for probably like 3 months. We just do it monthly, and it was just a cool way to like meet everyone in the community. After about 3 months, everyone's like, cool. So I've got the Slack, which is the 24/7 support. I've met a bunch of really cool people. We've connected on LinkedIn. We're all in each other's echo chambers. We know we exist. When are we going to learn something? And I was like, oh my God, like now you guys want events? Like, what's going on? And I was like, oh yeah, no, like totally, like events was always part of the plan, guys. I've got it. So then within like a month after that was first suggested, I was like, oh, we're going to launch our first educational event. Basically asked the community that was in the Slack at the time of like, okay, you know, we're in planning mode for our, and like, I'm in the background. I'm like, we're not in planning mode, but we're starting.
Well, you've been in planning mode for months now.
Oh, this was always part of it. So I was like, hey, like we've got our first events coming up. Like, what do you guys want to know? And at the time, everyone was really confused about like brand building or the impact of, you know, like good marketing and what that looked like. And I was like, okay, cool. That'll be the topic that we do the event on. We managed to get James Herman. He's, you know, one of the investors in Tracksuit. He also had just written a book called Future Demand, which was all around how to target people who know they need your product, but then how to target people who don't even know that they need it yet. So he was like a really good speaker for our first educational event. We ran that. I think we had 100 people show up to that event. And at that time, again, all we had was Slack. I had like maybe a few thousand followers on LinkedIn, and that was it. So to have a room full of people come to this thing that I had created that I thought was going to be like a coffee meetup for 30 marketers, I was like, holy shit, I feel like this thing's running away from me, but this is amazing. Like, you know, there's obviously a need for it. And then once we did the educational event, I think that was where the first domino started to fall, because the minute that you provide community, networking, and then education that's value, everyone's like, okay, now this actually means something. That was kind of like the big thing that was like, okay, so now you guys do events, so you're obviously going to keep doing events, and you listen to the community and you ask questions, so now we get to build the thing that you're also building. Like, this is amazing.
That was always part of the plan.
I was exactly. Like, guys, like, did you not see the 5-year plan? This was it. So once we started doing that, that was really where I think I saw it take off. And, you know, at the end of 6 months, we had 1,000 people in the community. After a year and a half, we were at, I think, about 6,000. And then 2.5 years later, we grew to 10,000. You have to remember, I thought this was going to be a coffee meetup for 30 people once a month. So to suddenly get that many marketers in a community that had never existed before. And I think even the way that I built the marketing club was literally just me wanting to essentially make friends, connect, and be able to find people who understood what I did for a role. And that's always very much been the ethos behind the marketing club, is connecting marketers at all ages and stages of their journey. Because I think in the industry at the time, there was stuff if you were a senior level marketer, there was stuff if you were a uni student, maybe there were a few little things if you were mid-level, but there was nothing that connected all of those people. The CMOs were in the industry, they weren't able to share all their knowledge with like the junior marketers coming up. There was just nowhere for those people to meet and have those conversations. And even just different industry bases, right? Like there was little communities popping off for like e-com or product or tech, but it was kind of of considered, oh, if you're in ecom but we're in PR, we won't talk to you because we do different things. And I was like, what do you mean? Like we're all in marketing, like come one, come all. It just grew from there. And I think, you know, somewhere along the lines, I decided to launch it in Australia as well. There was enough people who had started following me on LinkedIn who were in Australia who saw that I was talking about the marketing club, and they're like, oh, this looks really cool. Like, when's it coming to Aussie? And I was like, guys, like, first of all, I'm in New Zealand. Australia is 10 times the size of New Zealand. Like, you cannot tell me that it's like someone hasn't already done this in your country. You guys just need to look hard enough. But it planted a seed, and when a seed is planted in my brain, like that thing starts to grow. And I was like, oh, maybe there isn't something in Australia. Let me have a look. I did a bit of research. You know, there was stuff like the AMI, AMA, etc. But again, there was nothing that felt like it was for all marketers at all ages and stages of their journey. And I was like, oh, God damn, I'm going to have to build this in Australia, aren't I? And very similar to New Zealand, started the Slack community. I was like, right, you guys get Slack, because I'm not even in the country yet. I hadn't planned on moving to Australia at that point. I was just like, have Slack and see how you go. Same thing within like the first 2 weeks. I think there was like 400 and something people joined Slack. And like these people in Aussie had only connected with me on LinkedIn. So they hadn't even met me as a human yet in person. It was just purely based off what I talked about on LinkedIn. And then within 3 months, when are we getting events? We've seen that you're doing them in New Zealand. When's our ones coming on? And I'm like, I'm not in the country. Like, I can't run these, you know, like short of just leaning on some random and being like, hey, you're based in Sydney. I want to do an event in Sydney. Can you help me out? I know you don't know me, but like, please. I was like, I'm a really nice person. like, let's jump on a quick Zoom call and you can see what I'm like. So yeah, the Aussie one, like, just lived on Slack for ages. And then I moved to Australia in April last year. It was such a big move. It was way bigger than I thought it was going to be. And within 2 weeks of landing, I had a bloody event lined up because I was so excited just to do something. That was wild. Like, again, people in Aussie had only connected with me on LinkedIn. They'd never met me in person. Suddenly the marketing club runs their first event in Sydney, educational event straight away. Like, I was like, come in hard or like don't come at all. Sold out, first event. I was like, holy shit, this is insane. And then I think the momentum really started to build. We got a speaking slot at South by Southwest in Sydney. Then we got to do an event with Google. And then everyone started like talking about like, oh, there's this new marketing club. You know, it's this thing that actually invites every marketer. You know, the conversations that they're having, it's like real people talking about real things going on right now. It's not, you know, assholes talking about having a $20 million marketing budget. Like, we got $30,000 for the year. What's that? Like less than $1,000 a month to spend. How do we do this?
I love it how you just casually mentioned speaking slot at South by Southwest and Google. We just,
oh, you know, it just happened. It just happened.
I just tripped and stumbled.
I kind of did though. Like, I wasn't, you know, DMing anyone from South. It was just suddenly like, oh, there's this marketing club that seems to kind of have the power of the people behind it. Could that be something that's a good opportunity to bring to this event? A lot of the stuff that we've done, you know, I always put my hand up and say, like, we haven't chased these things. I think it was just there was such a gap in the industry for this thing to exist that so many people have gravitated towards us because of it. And I totally underestimated how well that I got that product market fit right. Obviously, I thought my problem was just me, myself, and I. I didn't realize that there were so many other marketers sitting there being like, I don't know who to turn to. I don't know who to look at for inspiration. I don't know who to ask for help. Like, is there somewhere that I can go? That's kind of been our journey. It's been 2.5 years now. And yeah, it's just been wild.
You kind of wouldn't have had the whole, the anxiety building around like, oh shit, I'm a marketer. I'm going to, you know, I've got to get this right, this type of thing. I imagine like it just organically was happening.
Yeah, I think for me, when I built the marketing club, there wasn't a pressure on what does doing this right look like. It was just, what does doing this look like? When you're looking at, say, marketing for a business, it's like if you're in a certain industry, then you've got other examples of how other businesses in that industry have done it. Whereas for me, because I was aware that the thing that I was building didn't exist, otherwise I wouldn't be building it, I was like, cool, so there's no rules. We'll just redefine what this might look like. Because we've never done it before and because we're new, no one's going to expect perfect. I think I lent so much into, you know, the personal brand that I was unknowingly built on LinkedIn. So many people had connected with me on LinkedIn who then when they found out about the marketing club, they viewed it as an extension of me as a human, and they knew that I wasn't perfect or polished or super structured. So then when they joined the marketing club, no one expected greatness. They were just like, oh, it's just this thing. We're all part of this new thing and it's starting and we're learning what everyone wants, and, you know, we'll get to kind of help build it along the way. And I think that's been so important for building the marketing club because it's basically become I suppose a bit of our brand is, we're not perfect. We're not polished. We don't get everything right. We don't think we're better than anyone else. This is a community that has been built by community. We're unpolished. We're slightly unhinged. We'll do our best. We'll admit what we don't know. We'll ask for help. Like, there's no ego around it. It's just like, we are just trying to build this thing for the benefit of the people that want it. If it, even just getting branding and logo, I was like, okay, so now we're official. We got our website. I was like, yes, we're a brand now.
Yeah. I'm just thinking as you're saying that though, like maybe marketers would be could be better to sell to us because we understand as well. Like we understand all the things that can go wrong.
I mean, I definitely, I think I was more anxious about like, how do I appeal to marketers who are probably going to, like, for example, like our website at the moment, it's not the biggest thing I'm proud of because it was like a stand-up job on Wix because we just needed somewhere to have a form fill to find out who was joining. Straight away, I was like, oh my God, all the marketers are going to come on here and be like, oh, that's the hero message you went with. That's the layout you just, like, this isn't good for conversion. No wonder your bounce rate's so high. But I think rather than people being like that, they were like, this is so cool that someone's just trying to do this thing. No one came at us for what we didn't know or not having everything perfect. They're like, this is just cool that you're giving it a go. Like, no one's done this yet. Like, kudos to you guys for trying.
That's great to hear that you've been encouraged. As I think about it now, like some of the, a lot of the marketers have been very supportive of what I've done with the push. And even though it's been around for forever, that doesn't matter. It's only been in this format for a little bit of time. So I think about it now and I'm like, oh, it's always the non-marketers who'll criticize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they think they know, right? No one goes to a surgeon and says, hey, I think I can do your job. But marketers, it's like, oh, I reckon I could have done better. I'm like, do it then.
Yeah.
Live a day in my shoes and do it. I mean, I think it, like, for us with that as well, I think it was just, if you're trying to build something and you claim it's going to be perfect, then you kind of open up the floodgates for people to criticize. Whereas I think for me, the marketing club was such an extension of who I was as a human that I was always so honest about, I'm building this new thing. I don't know what it's going to be. We don't have branding yet. We haven't done this. We haven't done that. This was the first time we did this thing. This is what we got wrong. So it was almost like prefacing everyone to say, I don't know what this is going to be. I understand this isn't perfect. And that kind of disarms people immediately because they're like, oh, she's already admitted it. So if we tell her, oh, hey, this wasn't good, she probably already knows it because she literally said this is the first time that you've done it. And I think I've learned so much both with the marketing club and my personal brand, me as a human and a business, I've just learned to lean into that so much because when you tell people that you already don't know what you're doing, there's literally nothing you can say that's going to hurt because I am so aware. Like, I've told you I don't know what I'm doing.
What do you got now?
Yeah, I'm like, come on. What else you got? Bar up, baby.
Was it different than launching your own consultancy?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that was, the marketing club was just the passion project. It was just the thing that I wanted to build community.
It's turned into a huge thing now.
Yeah. Yeah. Building my own consultancy was a lot more pressure on myself because this was me as a business human. This wasn't me as a community builder. This wasn't me just trying to be like a fun marketing person. This was, I am putting my name on now a service that I offer. And this is so much encapsulating of who I am as a businesswoman, what I am capable of, what I am promising people that I can deliver, even just what I'm capable of as a marketer. Like, if you are going to pay me money, I now need to deliver on that. And obviously, like, I didn't have, when you're an employee, you can kind of hide behind the business that you work with because it's like, oh, well, I'm just on salary and that's fine. But when I have personally made a promise that I'm going to do this work, the pressure of me to deliver on that of like, well, are you actually going to do it? Can you do it? How can you back up what you say you're going to do? No one, if I had essentially launched that, how I launched the marketing club, I would have got no clients because everyone's like, what do you mean you don't know what you're doing? What, you don't have a logo, you don't have, I mean, I didn't even have a website when I launched. I was massively unprepared, to be honest. Like, now that I think back, I'd just come off mental health leave. I was like, right, what are my next steps? I decided that, there was no other businesses at the time that I wanted to work for. And again, if something doesn't exist, build it myself. So I was like, right, well, if there's no one I want to work for, I'll just work for myself. And I was like, what does that even look like? What kind of role would I do? And I think based off my previous experience, I was looking at all the work that I enjoyed doing, and it was really helping businesses and brands grow from a strategic marketing level. And I remember putting into ChatGPT, I was like, these are the things I enjoy. This is what I don't enjoy. What is this role called? And it spun out all these things. And I think marketing consultant was like the one that kind of hit me the most. And I was like, cool, so that's what I am. Figuring out what I offered, I was like, still trying to figure that out, but I came up with like 5 or 6 bullet points. And I remember when I announced that on LinkedIn, I said, it's my first time ever running my own business. Like, this is the thing I'm going to be doing now. Again, prefaced it with, this is my first time. This isn't going to be perfect. I'm learning as I go. And I mean, I'm the worst person to ask like what running your own business for the first time looks like, because within a month I was fully booked. I, at that point, like wasn't even sure what I was going to charge, didn't have a website, didn't have a pitch deck. If you'd said to me, hey, Chanel, what does working with you look like? I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. I didn't think I was going to be booked within a month. I literally thought I was going to have like a 3-month runway to sort all those little things. I thought if I throw the idea out there now, then I've got 3 months to slowly get everyone in and start having conversations. But like day one, it was like, we need to talk to you. What are you doing? How can you help us? I was like, I literally did the post 12 hours ago. Like, what do you mean? I think the big thing for me, and like I always make sure people understand, the reason that I think that I had that result was because I was massively unaware of how many people were paying attention to the personal brand that I was building on LinkedIn. I didn't even know I was building a personal brand, to be honest. I very much use LinkedIn as almost like a diary entry every day. It's just part of my process of documenting what I'm going through, oversharing, undersharing, just, essentially like what's going on in my life. And because of the work that I had done at Arepa as the head of marketing, because I was the first marketing hire building a marketing function for a product that had never existed in a category that never existed, there was so much that I had to talk about on that journey. And I just started documenting it. Obviously I saw my follower numbers grow up and I was like, oh God, that's weird that this many people care about what I'm talking about. But then to see that essentially build such an audience that then when I announced that I was going out on my own, that audience almost turned into potential customers. I was like, holy shit. I'd heard people talk about the power of personal brand before, but to me, personal brand was like, the people who run webinars and give talks and they're like the TEDx speakers and all that stuff. To me, I wasn't aware that you could build a personal brand on LinkedIn just by showing up. And because at the time when I launched my business, I think I had about 5,000 followers at the time. It had taken me like a year or 2 years to build to 5,000 followers. So it wasn't like, I had joined LinkedIn and then suddenly everyone just like jumped on me and paid attention. It was such a slow trickle that then when I announced I was going out on my own, I had no idea that many people were suddenly going to care about what I was doing. And I think too, because I had attached so much of myself as a human as the role that I had had previously, I thought there was going to be such a negative thing that now I was leaving that role and no one was going to care anymore. I was going to disappear from everyone's mind because, she's not the head of marketing at Arepa anymore. So, who does she think she is? She doesn't matter to us anymore. I didn't think people were still going to pay attention to what I was doing after that.
Yeah, you've got a lot of brand equity banked up there.
Yeah, like unknowingly. I was like, I'm just sharing my story about what I've been doing. Now I look back, everyone's like, oh, so was that intentional? Did you purposely post like almost every day for 2 years to build up that brand awareness and equity? And I was like, I wish I could tell you yes. I wish I could say that was the strategy, but I was literally there just like, I've got so much to talk about. Let me just tell everyone what's going on.
It's interesting. Like I reflected on the stuff I've done on LinkedIn too, and I've done a lot of trying to like teach or educate or inform, and I put a lot of effort into some of that stuff and it just doesn't land that often. And then I write something a bit slightly unhinged, whatever, and people love it. That's what gets traction. I guess it makes sense. It is a personal, like you're a person posting on LinkedIn, so people I guess want to hear personal about the person. It's been interesting at times, and I've seen it with other people too, that you can put a lot of effort into trying to make really good content, but it doesn't necessarily connect.
When I first found out about LinkedIn, I hated it. I was working at an agency. My manager at the time, like it was the first agency I'd ever worked in. I was in charge of marketing the business in general, but then I was also like a growth manager for a SaaS product at the time, and growth managers weren't that common at the time in New Zealand. This was about 4 years ago. So she was like, oh, you should really talk about this, document your journey. It was my first role in like the product tech and SaaS world, and I was just like, oh my God, I have so much to learn. Like I didn't know what agile was. I'd never heard of a stand-up. I didn't even know what a developer was at that point. So I was like, fish out of water, like, oh yeah, hi guys, like you don't know who I am. And she's like, document this, you have to talk about it. And I remember the first time I went on LinkedIn, because it just serves you up like I guess default people when you first join the platform. It was all these CEOs and venture capitalists, and they're like, oh, I just made $1 million a month, or I just signed a client for $30,000, like follow me and I'll teach you you my 5-step ways. And I was like, the hell is this platform? Like, who are these people? Like, wankers. And I remember saying to her, I was like, this isn't for me. And she's like, honestly, just stick with it. Just talk about what you're doing. Even if people don't like your post, just use this as a way for you to document, basically like journaling.
That's advice has really paid off.
I was like, all right. Like, I mean, now I'm still connected with her and I'm like, yo, like you did good, man. Thank you. But yeah, at the time I was like, this is shit. And I kept with it. And I think just the process of, at the start it was very much like, right, I might have posted like 1 or 2 times a week. And in my head, I was like, this has to be the most perfect post ever because, people are only going to hear from me once. And I paid so much attention to what is the perfect hook? How do I make sure this sounds good? Like, what's the call to action? And no one gave a shit because you could see right through that it was so inauthentic. I was trying way too hard. And I think when I leaned into, because I didn't enjoy LinkedIn at the start, and then I was trying to be someone that I wasn't. Like if you met me in person, I was talking completely different to how I was showing up on LinkedIn. And I just sat with that for a second. I was like, right, if I'm going to be on a social media platform, because I mean, LinkedIn is technically social media. If I'm going to be on this platform, I want to show up as me as a human. So if you read something that I've written and then you catch up with me for coffee, it just sounds like a conversation. So I thought, screw what I've been told about how to show up on LinkedIn. I'm just going to do my own thing. No one's liking my shit anyway. So I literally had nothing to lose. And I think the minute I started being honest on LinkedIn, I was like, I'm in this new role. I've got no idea what, a product manager is or anything like that. People were kind of following along because they're like, holy shit, this is, it's funny, it's relatable. Like I was kind of giving like the inside scoop of what was going on in my day. And I think naturally, like people bonded with that because I was actually telling part of my journey. And like you said earlier, people connect with people, not businesses. So I essentially was like, unintentionally standing out on LinkedIn for doing the kind of content that no one was doing at the time. And I didn't realize that until, like a year later, I was like, oh, so that's where the switch flipped and the thing happened. At the time, it was like there was just so much of the same bullshit going on of everyone like, oh my God, my week was amazing and we just signed this deal.
Everything's so good all the time. Like everyone's living these perfect lives.
Yeah, and then there's me. I don't know what I'm doing this week. This sucks. Like this is so overwhelming, like all this stuff. So that kind of made me stand out. And then I think when I got that role at Arepa, again, because it was just this new thing and this new category, there were so many people that were paying attention to, like who is this new head of marketing person? What is it like doing marketing by yourself? What is it like marketing a company that's never existed before? Because I'd already built the confidence from the previous role to essentially just show up how I wanted to as a human. There was so much then that I had to document, but document in the way that I wanted to say it. That was just essentially like how I built all these followers and everyone kind of going on the journey. And then now like 3 years later, I think I've got almost 20,000 followers. And it's so weird to think that that's people who actually care about what you're talking about. I don't look at, a content strategy and be like, oh, did I do anything different? Is there a way that like I've hacked the system, the algorithm favors me? I'm like, I just show up as a human every single day at 8 a.m. and share what's going on. And if you like it, you follow me. If you don't like it, you hit the 3 dots and unfollow. But I think it's just the power of when you share who you are authentically, people will naturally relate to that more, right? And it's similar with what we're seeing in marketing with brands. Like brands are focusing so much on building community and connecting with the customers at a human level first because we're all so sick of being sold to. People, even not in marketing, right? Everyone knows when they're being marketed to. Yeah. Like even my parents, they understand marketing to a point. Dad will get an email and they're like, God, they're pushing this bloody discount like 5 times. I'm like, yeah, but did you click on the link? He's like, yes. I'm like, so it worked then. Like you are now a statistic of that email working. But I think like people just get so sick of being talked to all the time. Whereas if you actually relate to them first, bring them in. It's like, I always use this analogy and it's kind of stupid, but it makes sense. If you get invited to a party, and you knock on the door and then you run into the room, jump up a table and scream, everyone's going to be like, who the fuck are you? Whereas if you knock on the door, you introduce yourself, you go around the room, you introduce yourself to other people, they get to know you as a human, then chances are, if they see you at another party, they're going to remember you. And I very much view LinkedIn like that. How do I introduce myself first? How do I tell people about who I am as a human, what matters to me, what I enjoy doing, the kind of work that I'm up to? Then maybe eventually 10 times down the line, then I'm on the table like dancing and screaming because everyone already knows me and they're like, oh yeah, Chanel, she's a hoot. But it's because you met me like 6 months ago and you already understand who I am.
Yeah, well, that's a great analogy. And I was thinking then about the inauthentic ways of hacking the system on LinkedIn, which I've accidentally done once. And I didn't think about it, but I kind of half picked a fight with Byron Sharp, actually, so the president of Ehrenberg Bass. For anyone who's listening, like if someone interacts with you who has a huge following and that, it can blow up your
Oh,
impressions on LinkedIn. And I tagged him in something for some reason. I was just trying to discuss something. Like, I actually wasn't trying to pick a fight.
Yeah.
But I don't know what I was thinking. But anyway, I did it, and he responded, and didn't really like what I wrote. And I'm like, oh, shit. And then I'm looking, and this is just blowing up, like 8,000, 12,000. Like, and I would get maybe 1,000 impressions at most for a post, and this is just flying off the charts. For something I'm like, I don't really want to be known for, for picking a fight. Like, and I'm like, oh, I didn't think about this, did I? So anyway, it got up to like 35,000, 40,000. People are like, you know, picking holes in what I said and that. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of agree, but I didn't like write something to be bulletproof.
Yeah.
So that didn't feel good though.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. Like it got me more attention than ever, but it didn't actually feel good.
Yeah, I think it's a like, I mean, LinkedIn is a funny place, right? Like I was having a conversation with someone about this the other day, because obviously the buzzword right now is everyone needs to build their personal brand. You've got to put yourself out there, connect with the human first, all that stuff. Yes, that is a really good strategy, but I think it always is important to say, like, putting yourself out there is not easy. I post 6 times a week on LinkedIn. To show up 6 times in 7 days and be expected to have something to say, and not just like something to say of, oh, you know, she told us what she had for breakfast. I mean, some people might mention that, I don't know. But, you know, to actually have something that's worth paying attention to, it can be really hard. And I think too, like as much as I've leaned into being vulnerable and being authentic, I have now put the pressure on myself that is the human that I need to be a lot of the time, because that's the kind of content that people expect from me. And I love that is the expectation, because I feel like I've almost like set the status quo of what good content can look like, and, you know, people being able to connect with humans on a deeper level. But at the same time, it is not easy to always be honest about what I'm going through. Like I remember a while ago, I think it was about 2 months ago, I did a post on LinkedIn about being a first-time business owner and everything. And like, yes, obviously, you know, like, oh, it must be amazing that you were fully booked within a month. You know, I had 110 people reach out, all this sort of stuff. But it's like, yeah, that was the hype story, absolutely. But what most people also don't know, and this was what the post was talking about, is it's like, you know, the sleepless nights, the doubting yourself, the imposter syndrome, the not knowing what to do next, the not knowing who to reach out to for help. I lost $80,000 in my first year of business because I chose a shit marketing coach. I had contracts fall through that I had like miswritten, and they basically took advantage of that. There were so many mistakes that I made along the way, and to essentially feel almost obligated to admit those mistakes, because that is the persona that I have built on LinkedIn. It is forever a standard I'm going to hold myself, because I see the value of doing that, because so many people choose to be like, oh, well, I'll just share the good stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but it's the shit stuff that we bond over that changes the expectation of the next generation coming through. And I think a big thing for me with how I choose to show up, you know, when you've got the amount of followers that I do, like not in a wanky way, but it is a responsibility that is on me of like, is what I am sharing truthful, or is it going to feed into a narrative that, you know, shouldn't exist? I've always been very intentional of, at no point do I want anyone to look at my career or my journey and be like, oh, that was so easy for her. That was an overnight success for her. Look at how well she did. I have always made sure and been very intentional that I have documented and been honest about my journey, because it has not been easy. It has taken me 11 years to get here. I have been pushed down more times than I have been pushed up. It has been a huge amount of work for not always a lot of payoff. And I have never wanted to feed into that narrative of her career looked so easy because she only spoke about the highlights.
You're saying that the double-edged sword of that is the low lights are so hard to talk about at times.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, it gets easier. Like there's things now, you know, shit stuff happens and I'm like, oh, I guess that's going to be a LinkedIn post. But there are times where I'm like, should I post that on LinkedIn? You know, like when I admitted losing $80,000, any potential client could have looked at that and been like, oh, she doesn't know what she's doing. How do you lose $80,000 in your first year of business? You failure. Like there's so many ways that things like that could blow back. But in the same breath, I'm like, well, if that blows back on me, or if someone views that negatively, you're probably not the kind of human that I want consuming my content anyway. Because if you don't see the power in me being honest about that, and I remember when I did that post, there were people who reached out and said, oh my God, I had the same thing happen to me, but it was in the first 6 months of business, the first 3 months. It is such a common thing. And when people don't talk about it, we then get this warped perception of what the reality of starting something is. And I think that's kind of the thing that I'm like, how do we break the wheel? It's so dramatic, but I'm like, how do we
You a Game
stop?
of Thrones fan?
I'm literally in season 8 right now.
Oh, shut up. I won't say anything about it.
Oh no, I'm repeat. Well, this is like the third time
okay,
I'm
that's all
watching
right
it.
then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I ran out of Netflix shows. But no, like honestly, I'm like, how do we break the wheel of thinking that these success stories are the only way of doing stuff? I've always wanted to, if I died tomorrow, touch wood, but if I died tomorrow, I would hope that someone would look at the journey that I've had and being like, oh, okay, so there wasn't a right way to do it. Nothing was linear. Everything had to be fought for. You're allowed to reset the status quo and challenge what people think normal looks like.
Yeah, that is an interesting point, isn't it? Because I think I've definitely felt the pressure to do things a certain way, that there's some narrative sitting in your head somewhere that you've got to do it this way.
Yeah, I think though, like it's just comparison, right? Like when I launched my business, everyone thought I was like absolutely unhinged, that I didn't have a website, that I hadn't prepared a pitch deck, that I didn't even know what I was charging yet. Obviously, I didn't think I was going to be that busy. So in my head, I was like, I've got 3 months to plan this out, guys. Like, this will be fine. But at the same time, I was so sick of all the noise of what everyone else had done in their way of doing it. And I was like, what does my way of doing it look like? I'm not a professional. Yes, I'm asking people for help, but at some point you just have to jump and figure it out as you go. And I think even with people that I've spoken to recently who've, been asking advice around starting your own business, I'm like, just trust your gut, do what you think you can do. And like, even with my journey, I've only just got a website 2 weeks ago. So I've operated as a marketing consultant for 18 months, been fully booked for almost all of those 18 months, and only ever had LinkedIn as a channel to contact me on. There was no other way you could have found out about me other than LinkedIn. So it's like, there is an example of, you do not need a website to be able to run a business. You can fully rely on personal brand, word of mouth, and referral. So like, sure, maybe right now I'm like one of the crazy ones that's done that. But, maybe someone else hears that and they're like, oh, well, Chanel did it, so I don't need to do it. And then that person has 3 other people that do it. And then suddenly it becomes this new thing of, well, all those people did it without a website, so I don't need to have a website.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty powerful, like to give people permission to just do it their way too. I think that's cool. And if anyone, like, as you're saying this stuff and things not having to be perfect, if you're listening on audio, Chanel's like got this microphone, like that's sort of behind a couch. The stand isn't long enough to have in front of her, so I had to put it behind it, and it's kind of leaning over. You'll be able to see it if you're on video. But speaking of not everything having to be perfect, I'm looking at you and I'm like looking at the microphone stand behind you, beside you. I'm like, yeah, about that.
You've got to start somewhere.
Can I still say that 80 episodes later?
Maybe. It's our first one, it counts.
Amazing. Thank you for taking the time again. If people are looking to find you somewhere, you've got a website now. So
I do have a website. You
can push them in that direction.
Yeah. Website is chanelclarkmarketing.com. Very original. Otherwise, just LinkedIn. Always on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I was expecting that one to be in there. But,
shocking.
Thank you so much, Chanel, for taking the time to chat today.
No, thank you for having me.
So many people will get a lot out of that. So much appreciated.
Thank you.